Hello, and welcome all inspiring medical terminologists out there. I am Professor Doe, and I will be the instructor providing you this on-demand lecture series that accompanies The Language of Medicine by David Ellen Schabner. This is, of course, the class Medical Terminology, and today we'll be talking about Chapter 1, Basic Word Structure, as well as some study tips that I have to help you succeed in this course and hopefully succeed in your career goals. Now, this is quite an odd time for you to be calling me to lecture, but you don't care about what time it is because, again, this is an online class and it is on demand. And while I am here providing with you the lecture and the material and all the information that you need, the real me is probably A, sleeping, B, at the beach, or C, enjoying a mocha latte at a local coffee shop, or D, just somewhere else. But you don't care about where I am. All you care about is someone right here in front of you giving you the lecture series. Okay? And so, whatever, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin and get started learning about medical terminology and how you can succeed in this class. Now, here are the goals that we hope to accomplish in this chapter. We hope to be able to identify basic objectives, basic objectives here, to guide your study of the medical language. We want to be able to divide the medical words into their component parts. We want to learn the meanings of basic combining forms, prefixes, and suffixes of the medical language. Use these combining forms, prefixes, and suffixes to build medical words. And actually, this is quite a big one. If you're taking my class, this is quite a big one in my class. Being able to analyze words by dividing them into component parts, relate the medical terms to the structure and function of the human body, and also, this is a key one here, to be aware of spelling and pronunciation problems. Many students have mispronounced a lot of these words, and while some pronunciation like potato and potato, people can generally understand it in medical terminology, some words you can't get away with that because if you say it incorrectly, the person might misunderstand you, and in some cases, in some of those words, you might get a slap on the cheek for it. So we want to make sure that you don't get that slap in the cheek, or I don't know, maybe you have, maybe you do, I don't know, but we're going to go ahead and sort that out as we continue on through this lecture series. Now, before we begin, I want to give you some tips that I would recommend when studying for at least my class. First of all, check out any study tips that are provided by your instructor. Your instructor is your main source of contact. Me, I'm just behind a computer screen. Okay, I might be your instructor. I might not be your instructor. I hope I'm your instructor, but your main instructor for your course will be your main point of contact. So you want to be sure that you keep in contact with them and ask them any questions you might have pertaining to the course. Second thing, you've probably heard this from many or lots of other students out there, is the use of flashcards. Now, in my hand, I have here a stack of empty flashcards, and one of the things that I recommend, you probably figured it out already, but that's okay for those of you guys that are new to this. Here's one example of a flashcard, and you might want to get yourself not one, but maybe, I don't know, 22 of these stacks. This is just my recommendation because there are lots of terms. Not 22. You're definitely not this. You're going to have like a lot more than this if you decide to write a medical term on each flashcard. What you can do here is you get, say, get two color markers, maybe one that's, this case, I can't tell, it's blue, and here's another one here is red, and on one side of the card you might want to write the medical term. So in this case, I'm just going to write the word term on one side, and then on the other side you want to write the definition. Okay, on the other side you might want to write the definition. Now, here's the thing that I like to do when I was in undergrad or when I was studying medical terminology. What I like to do is I like to save paper because, those poor trees out there, they're living things. Obviously, as you guys don't already know, I also teach non-majors and majors biology courses out there. I like to cut, bend this in half and slice it so I get two cards out of one. So it's up to you however you want to do it. The only thing is that when you cut it in half, it's kind of hard to shuffle. And that's another thing that you might want to do is after you write out all your terms, to shuffle the deck of medical terms. It's up to you, however you want to study. So here we go. I've got here a sample of a card with a term and a definition. Obviously, the term here is not a medical term. The definition is not a medical definition. And what you want to do is you have here this massive stack. You shuffle it. Okay, obviously I'm pretending to shuffle. Come on, use your imagination here. And then you pick the first card from the top of the deck and you're given the term. And I recommend that on a separate sheet of paper, if I can't find one, on a separate sheet of paper, look at it and then write down, what does that term mean? On a piece of paper, and then flip it over to the back and see if you got it right. Do this over and over again. But we're not done yet. In my class, there's more than just knowing the term and then being able to give me the definition. There's also, I might give you the definition and you have to come down with the term. So here's the thing. You want to know how to derive and correctly construct and spell these medical terms. And the key thing here is being able to spell, because that's one of the learning objectives here in medical terminology. And here's the thing I want to let you know. There are cases out there. For example, there are cases I've heard from EMTs, paramedics, nurses, physicians, and everything, where in the haste of time, a word was misspelled by even a letter. And it happened that that patient had sued this person and took them to court. And what ended up happening was that the patient won the case because the court was able to argue, or at least the defendant or the patient was able to argue, that the word spelled on their document was not the official word that described their case. Even though it was misspelled by one word, the lawyer, in this case, the patient, won the case. So you don't want to be in that shoe. So please be sure to spell all your terms correctly. And if you're in my class, you're going to get deducted points for misspelling, even by one letter. So please be sure that you know how to spell those words. I want to make sure that you don't get yourself sued or get your rear end sued. Okay, here we go. Here's another thing. So you might come across here. So you pick up the card and you're given the definition. Okay, so you're given the definition and you have to correctly construct that medical term based on the context of that particular situation or chapter or whatever you're studying. That's a key one. Definitely I would recommend, definitely I would recommend that you know how to do this one as well. That's big because that tests your ability to synthesize. Now you also want to know all the basic concepts pertaining to the basic human anatomy, physiology, clinical procedures, diagnoses, etc., and how to apply these terms. How to apply medical terms to the concepts that you've learned in there. Now, obviously, all of these things will come in Chapter 5 and beyond when we start learning about the major organ system. But for the first four chapters, we'll pretty much be learning terms, structures, and structures for the first four. Okay, when we get to Chapter 5, we'll flip gears and start applying them, and you will see these terms repeat over and over and over again until you're totally sick of it. Okay. Number 2, here's another thing I would recommend: your textbook. Now, for me, for this class or this video lecture series, you have the textbook, The Language of Medicine, by David Ellen Schabner, and I'm here holding the 10th edition. Now, if you turn to a typical chapter, let's say. Here we go. I'm just turning to a random page here. As you can see, in this green box or whatever edition you have, they might change the color, but it's pretty much the same or whatever. You'll have here the prefix, the meaning of the prefix. For example, we have here Anna. Anna means up or apart, or ante means before or forward. So you'll know those. But next to it, there's a terminology word. For example, there's anabolism or analysis, and there's a blank here. You want to go in and make sure that you define these as well. And every time you see that blank in there, you want to be able to define those too. Okay? Make sure that you know how to do that and be able to, if you're given the word, define it. If given the definition, go backwards and give me that word too, so that you work both ways and you'll know those words inside and out. So excellent resource as well. Also, not on the PowerPoint slide, at the end of the chapter here, I have no clue if this is make it to the screen, but I think it is. At the end of the chapter, there are exercise problems here to help you practice those terminology. definitely do these exercise problems. A lot of students have told me this really helped them as well. And don't panic. If you're sitting there going, well, don't know what the answers are to those questions, guess what? If you flip a couple, well, I shouldn't tell you this. You should answer these questions without looking at the answer key. But here it is. Answers to the exercise are provided a few pages down. So no one's handicapping you here. You have all the resources available to you in this very nice compact book. So hopefully you will find this textbook very resourceful. Now you also want to utilize any resources provided by your instructor as well as an online class or whatever. There are many different kinds of resources, flashcards, little games or whatever. You want to go there and find those resources, and utilize them. Any virtual lectures like this one you want to use, flashcards, use them all. Make sure that you're able to learn those material, because that's the end of the day why you're taking this class, right? Not as a check mark on a list, but to actually want to learn medical terminology. Well, I hope, right? Okay. Now, if your instructor should provide you resources, but if there aren't any resources that you find valuable, then really there's nothing much that we can do other than tell you, go on Google or a search engine and research medical terminology resources. It's all out there for you. Okay, so take full advantage of those. Now here's a philosophy. The goal here is for you to become medical terminology masters. Now, if you haven't already been exposed to medicine or the clinical field or even medical terms, this class is going to be very much like learning a new language. And I want you to keep this in perspective here. People take years to learn a new language. I mean, check out when you were in high school. If you are in high school, I mean, if you wanted to learn that Spanish or French or German language, do they have one semester of French? And then at the end of the semester, you're going to be proficient at it. Or, they have Spanish year 1, year 2, year 3, even year 4, even AP. Same thing at the community college or even at the university level. There's year 1, year 2, year 3. Guys, we've got to learn medical terminology in this entire semester, or however long this course is mapped out for you. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of work to do. So it's going to be challenging, and it's going to be, but it's going to be fun at the same. Well, I hope it's going to be fun at the same time. Okay. Now, medical terminology is more than just knowing the terms and then what's the definition. Okay. There are just too many words out there. So the approach that my lectures have is not only do I teach you the words and the terms, but more so how to recognize those word parts and derive those definitions. And then when you have a full out word, be able to derive a sensible and logical definition for that. That's what these video lecture series are targeting, because there's just too many words out there. And if I tell you to memorize a list of terms, then that when you leave the course, that's all you're going to know is that list of terms. At least in theory, you're going to know that list. I rather teach you how to derive those terms. So it's going to take some work. So we're going to go ahead and talk more about that in a little bit. Heck, I don't even know all those medical terms. Okay, there's too many. All right. So the goal here is when you hear a medical term, you will be able to grasp it. That's a key word. You're going to hear it. You're not going to freak out. You're not going to say, oh my G, OMG, I don't know what that is. You're going to be able to be comfortable with the term, be able to understand its context, and derive a sensible definition for yourself. And this is, again, it's more than just memorizing the terms in the class. Again, that limits your toolbox and your scope. And this educates you better, in my philosophy, so that there is a low chance that someone out there who is a healthcare fanatic or healthcare guru will be able to kind of sell you something that is not sensible, just pull the rug under. That could cost you lots and lots and lots of money out there. You want to be an informed individual, an informed patient, whatever position you're in at that time, so that you can make the right decisions based upon what you hear and understand. So you don't want to be in that case. My former students, even to this day, have emailed me about how much they still remember those terms. I'm talking about 2-3 semesters, even 4 semesters in advance. Why? Because of the methodology of the lecture series and how this material is delivered. empowers you, the student, okay, and empowered them, and it can empower you too. But you gotta work with the course here, work with me on this one, and so that you can get to that point. I want to get you there. But to get you there will take hard work, and that's a key thing. It's not going to be like, oh, fill my brain up with that stuff. It's going to take some hard work and lots of practice, 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 and practice. It's just like working out at the gym. You're not going to walk into the gym at 8 o'clock in the morning, being whatever shape that you're not happy with, and then walk out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon being all muscular and beach body. Like, it's not going to work that way. And with anything that you learn in life, that's not going to work that, no matter what class. Okay, so you need to practice over and over and over again until you're so sick of it that it just comes out like that. Okay, but here's the thing though, hang in there with me. Stay motivated and strong and keep studying hard for this course, okay? But stay healthy too. Don't sacrifice your health. Don't forget to eat your meals. Don't forget to, drink your water or stay healthy, okay? Especially if you're going to be a healthcare provider, you want to set an example for your patients that you are the image and the symbol of what health should be. So stay healthy, stay strong, stay motivated, but study hard at the same time. Your instructor will also assign different class activities and even periodic tests. If you're in my class, probably you have a weekly test. Actually, if you're in my institution like Saddleback College, you're going to have a test pretty much every week, every module. We will assign whatever assignments we feel are best for everyone to accomplish that learning objective. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the most popular. And what I mean by most popular is, hey, professor, I signed up for this class, now pass me. No, it's not going to work that way. The grades must accurately reflect your proficiency of the material and the knowledge, and that is determined by your instructor and by how it's evaluated per the course syllabus. Okay, so keep that in mind. Not always popular, but I'm willing to take that avenue by picking assignments that work best for the student, that accomplishes a learning objective, but not what's necessarily popular. And I might get, I might get some people not liking me for it, but you know what? Did you learn it? If you learned it, I'm happy. I'll go with it. Okay, for you, I'll go for it. I'll take the hit for that. Okay. All right. Lastly, there will be happy times in this course, but there will also be some very challenging times as well. As in anything that you learn brand new in life, there will be some challenging times. But regardless of how hard and challenging things get in this course, always remember one thing. You are an inspiring person. Yes, that's right. You are an inspiring person. Okay? And as you continue through this course, I will prove to you why you are an inspiring person. Never forget that. When you feel down, when you feel like you're not, at your top notch in this course, always come back here to this slide and remember that you are an inspiring person. Okay? And everyone that you're going to come in contact with out there, when they look at you, they will know, yes, you are an inspiring person. No doubt about it. Okay? So always remember that as you go through this course, and I'm going to prove to you as we continue on. All right. Now here's some additional resources, for relaxation if you do need it. Some of my students have found this very helpful and told me to put it in the PowerPoint slides to help future students. First thing that I recommend here is you get yourself an index card, another one or whatever, a piece of paper, and draw a dot on there. I'm going to draw myself a nice blue dot. You can, whatever color rocks your boat. Here's a nice blue dot right here. Wonderful, right? Okay, this, I want you right now, take a few moments to do that. Pause this presentation until you've done it. All right, I'm assuming that you've done it, right? Okay. Now, I want you to take a look at the dot that you've drawn. Your dot, not mine, yours. And listen to me now. Draw that dot. Look at that dot. And I want you to associate with this dot of any positive experiences you've had that you consider positive in your life. Maybe the first time you rode a bike, or your first whatever, or maybe your first happy moment, anything. Now, you complaining about this course, you complaining about, I just want to get through this class, I don't like this instructor, I hate this instructor, or whatever, I don't like studying, I want to go out and do something else. Any of those negative thoughts, okay, throw those out. They don't belong with this dot. The only dot that you should associate with the one that you've drawn should be positive and happy thoughts. Okay? I want you to take a few, pause this slide, and for the next few minutes, I want you to assimilate and put that in. Pause it. Okay, I assume that you're back now, or you maybe didn't even pause it because you didn't care, you think I'm ridiculous. Whatever. Take this dot and then put it right in front of your computer screen or whatever. From now on, every time that you feel a little down or anytime you feel a little bit of stress, I want you to go and look at that dot. And I want you to remind yourself all the positive and happy things that make you and bring your spirit up. Okay, so make sure that you take care of that and do that. I recommend that. Helps me. Now here's some other Zen resources that I like to use that are available on YouTube. Now these links, I may provide them in the description in the YouTube thing here. It's by Johnny Lawson, and for example, we have here 8 hours of relaxing nature sounds, sounds of water, relaxation, meditation, study, and sleep. And I've provided that link right over here. You might want to check that out, for 8 hours. If you need the 8 hours, it's there. Here's another one by the same user here, Johnny Lawson. This one here is of bird sounds and water. It's really nice. HD quality, if I may add, and I say so myself. It's really excellent. Here's another one here, sounds of the ocean, for another, I think it's 8 hours too. Beautiful sounds there. Helps me relax whenever I'm under stress, and I want to share those resources with you too. In case you need a Zen sound or Zen moment and this helps you out, here, check out these links. It'll help you get into your Zen moment too. And there are many other resources online if these don't work for you, but these tend to work for my students a lot. So I want to write that out there. And if none of these, the dots or these video sounds, Zen sounds work, then go ahead and research your own Zen moment or things that help you relax and kind of stay positive and energetic and uplifting. Research those resources for yourself, or maybe have a friend or a family member or a relative or whatever help bring your spirits up whenever you're feeling defeated or whenever you're feeling kind of down on the class. Get those resources available for you. Our campus college, if you're taking my class, our college has a lot of resources available for you as well. Please check out the links provided. If you're taking it with another instructor, check out the links provided by your instructor. Ask your instructor for those resources as well. Always have those on hand with you. All right. Well, I'm done talking about those things, and I believe that now you're all energized and ready to go and study medical terminology, right? All right, well, let's get on going. Let's go ahead and start talking about your first medical term that I'm going to introduce you. And no, the first medical term is not going to be medicine. Okay, the first medical term is right there in front of your screen. It is hematology. Check this out. Please repeat after me. Hematology. That's right. You probably didn't even repeat after me anyway because you think it's absolutely silly to repeat after me when it's on a YouTube video, but you should be doing it anyway. And if you did, well, congratulations to you. You're one step closer to succeeding in this class. Okay, so if you didn't repeat after me. Hematology. Good, that's excellent. All right, here we go. Now, hematology, hemato, if you take a look here, we do have hemato. By the way, that was this, my nice little bell. This is probably the only lecture in which I'm going to be using that bell. I don't know, but whatever. Hemato here means blood, amazingly enough. And logy, which many of you probably already knew when you were in high school. You heard the word biology or sociology, and your teacher or instructor probably defined it for you. Logy means the study of. And if you take a look here, the hemato is considered the root of the word, and then logy here is considered the suffix, and it is tied together by something known as a combining vowel. And that combining vowel helps to kind of allow us to smoothly combine those two parts. We don't want to say hematology. It just kind of sounds like you're hiccuping. Hematology, it sounds ridiculous. So hematology, it just sounds very smooth and very nice. And a lot of times those combining vowels help to allow the pronunciation to be very smooth. So better appreciate those combining vowels, guys. So here are some of those important elements. We do, once again, have that root, which is the foundation of the term. Now, the suffix here is considered the root ending. we do have the prefix, which is the word's beginning, like pre means before, right? That's part of it. And you do have that combining vowel, which is usually an O, not always, but usually an O, that links the root to a suffix or root to another root, and that aids in the pronunciation. So root to a suffix or root to another root, okay, aids pronunciation. You do have that combining form, okay, and that combining form is like the root with that combining vowel. Like, for example, he mat. He mat would be considered the, oh, that's not a T, that's like a tau or something. He mat, whoops, where is it? Okay, he mat here would be considered the root, but if you add it with the combining vowel, it would be considered the combining form. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're studying this. Now, here's the thing: when you're writing out medical terms on a medical record report or something, you're not going to put those slashes in there. Okay, those slashes are provided for students to easily be able to split up those different parts. But obviously, in the field or when you become proficient, or even on my chapter tests and exams, you're not going to put that slash in there. I'm going to assume you know where those slashes are. Okay. All right. Next up here. The next word, we're going to make it a little bit longer here. This next word is electrocardiogram. Whoa, what a massive word. We have here electro, and you could probably figure out what that means. Electricity, electro. We have here cardio, which means heart. We have here a gram. Not a graham cracker, guys. I know you're all hungry by now, but gram means a record. Again, elector, the root elector means electricity. Cardi here means heart, and gram means a record. Not a CD record, but something that holds data information, that kind of a record, okay? In this case, if you check this out, you can see between elector and cardi, we do have another combining vowel. In this case, it's going to be an O. And we have cardi, which is also another combining vowel. So in this case, we have two combining vowels in there. Okay, so electrocardiogram. Repeat after me, electrocardiogram. Great, okay, I'm assuming you said it correctly because I can't possibly over YouTube figure out, or this video figure out how you pronounce it, but I'm assuming you did electrocardiogram. Okay, all right. Another one here, a little bit smaller. Gastritis. Repeat after me, gastritis. And no, it doesn't mean gas, okay, or passing gas, but it's something related to it. Gaster means your stomach, okay, gaster, and itis. This is a big one. I definitely might want to know this one, okay. Itis here means inflammation. And if you take a look at these, between gaster and itis, we don't have an O in there. What the heck is going on? The reason why is because itis, which is that suffix, already begins with a vowel. So we don't need to say gastroitis. It sounds kind of funky. Gastritis is good enough, and it sounds wonderful. So you can drop that combining vowel when the suffix already starts with the vowel itself. Again, the purpose of the vowel is to allow for the smooth pronunciation of that. So for the most part, we can drop that combining O if the next part already begins with the vowel. Here's a longer one, gastroenterology. In this case, we do have gastro. We already know that means stomach. Better know that by now. Entero does not mean to enter a place, okay? Entero in this case means intestines. Okay, we do have intestines, right? We have two different kinds. We'll get to those in the digestive system, okay? But for now, just know that's the intestines, these little tubes that help absorb the foods that you eat. That's basically it, but that's not the answer on a test, guys. It's something to help you remember. And we have logi, which means the process of study, okay? And in between these, we do have combining vowels here. Check this out. We do have a vowel, a combining vowel, gastroenterology. What's going on here? We'll talk about that in the next slide, okay, as to why that is. So here are the three general rules when defining these terms. First of all, let's go on back. Okay, gastroenterology means the study of the stomach and the intestinal tract. But if you look at our rules here, when we're defining terms, the general rule of thumb here is when you're trying to define terms, when you're trying to extrapolate, you're trying to figure out what that definition is, you always start from the suffix. So are you ready for this one? Here's a brain twister for you. So you start at the end. That's right, on your view, this is the end. You start here at the end of the word, the suffix, and then you go to the beginning and you work your way that way. Isn't that cool? You start with the suffix and you go to the beginning and you go that way. All right? Not like one way, like from your left to right. We're going to start at the end because we don't like to start with the beginning of a story. We like to read the end of the story first and then go back and then read the rest of the story, right? Isn't that more interesting? No one says that you had to read the first chapter and then move on down to the last chapter of a novel. You can read the end and then go back to the beginning, read across. No one cares, okay? But in this case, you always, for medical terms, you start with the suffix and then you go to the beginning and you move and work your way across. Now, here's that rule. Remember, you drop the combining vowel, which is usually that O, before a suffix. Where is my before a suffix beginning with a vowel? So you say gastritis, not gastroitis, or not gastroitis. Okay, gastritis. However, the third rule here is that you keep those combining vowels when it's between two roots. So, for example, gastroenterology, not gastroenterology. Okay, gastroenterology. It's kind of a tongue twister there. Okay, so always between two roots. That's kind of the general rule of thumb. Obviously, medical term, there are always some exceptions to the rule, but these are the general rules. Okay, don't freak out when you see those exceptions. All right. Here's a big warning for you guys, okay? Big warning, which has totally messed up so many of my students in previous classes. So I want to give it to you guys up front, and this will set the precedent for the rest of the lecture series. The meaning of each of the roots, prefixes, and suffixes that you're going to learn in this series are only clue definitions to help you derive the actual meaning of an entire medical term. Did you get that? Okay, so the definitions of terms are based on the accepted definition that's used in the field, not what you throw together. Okay, so meaning you can't slap definitions together, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, some of the word part definitions do have multiple meanings, and it just depends on which one's widely used in the field or which one is used in the context of the chapter or the lesson that you are studying. Okay, there are multiple meanings, and it's up to you to determine which is which. All right, so be very careful with those. For example, pericardium. That's another medical term here. Peri, like perimeter, like on a square or a rectangle when you learned in a geometry class. The perimeter is adding up all those sides. Peri means surrounding. Cardio means heart. And just a kind of little related topic here. When you're exercising at the gym and someone tells you, do your cardio, you are actually trying to increase or trying to get your heart rate up. That's what they mean by cardio. Okay? And then iyam actually means structure. So right over here, iyam means structure. So if you were to slap these definitions together, you would probably write down on your paper a structure surrounding the heart. That's down here. Okay, that would be incorrect, even though iyam means structure. But that's only a clue to what that definition is. You need to determine, in this case, what kind of structure they're talking about. And the kind of structure they're talking about is actually a membrane surrounding the heart. So if you're in my class, be very careful. If you put down a structure surrounding the heart, I'm going to mark it wrong. But if you're going to put down a membrane surrounding the heart, you're going to get it right. Okay? So the way that you're going to be able to tell which is which is clearly look at the definition provided by your glossary in that textbook. Look at the glossary definition. And for the purposes of grading in my class, at least, I'm going to use a glossary to be the final judge. The glossary of your textbook, in this case, it's a 10th edition in this case. Your official course textbook. Right now, it's this. I'll be using that glossary or definitions index or something in order to be the final judge in those definitions. Now, other instructors might use different resources, but for me, if you're with me, I'm going to be using that. Okay? All right, moving on. Two more words here. Hypogastric and epigastric. Again, hypo means below. Gastro, we already know, means stomach. And ic means pertaining to. So sorry about that. If we were to give out the definition of hypogastric, in this case, we can slap the definitions together because when we do, the definition is the same as what's in the glossary. So it means pertaining to below the stomach. That's hypogastric. And epigastric here means pertaining to above the stomach. Epi here means above. Okay, so there a lot of times the definitions of those word parts, if you put them together, will actually be the true definition, but be careful, not always. Okay, and that's when points get lost, when you accidentally forget that that word that was asked on a test is not the actual definition, so be careful. All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and talk about some more combining forms. Just to let you guys know, the first 4 chapters in this textbook pretty much just lists combining forms, prefixes, suffixes, and different stuff. You're pretty much going to be learning all of those. When we get to chapter 5 on, you're going to be seeing a lot of these repeat itself. So hopefully you should be studying chapters 1 through 4 very thoroughly, extremely thoroughly, because by knowing those chapters like the back of your hand, you will be able to get through the rest of the textbook with much greater ease and less headache, if you want to put it that way. Okay. Now, in my class, you should be studying all of these combining forms, but I'm going to go ahead and point out a couple of them, some important ones. We have here adeno. Excuse me. We have here adeno, which means gland. We also have arthro, which means joint. Okay, not athero. That we'll talk about athero later in the course, but not arthro here means joint, like arthropods or something like that. Okay, or arthritis. How about arthritis? What does arthritis mean? That's right, inflammation of a joint. And we have here carcino, which means cancerous or cancer. And of course, you already know this from a previous slide. Cardio means heart. Scisso means to cut. Okay, for example, like scissors, you already know, or incision. Incision. Okay. Let's see. Another one here is cysto. In this case, cysto means urinary bladder. We do have here cyto. Now be careful with cyto and cysto. The letters look to the eye and the brain might look the same, but obviously the spelling is different. Cyto means cell in this case. We do have dermo or dermato. That means skin. For example, whenever someone has severe acne or whatever conditions on the skin, they go see that's right, dermatologist. Okay, they go and they see a dermatologist. And a dermatologist is a specialist, a physician who specializes in the skin and skin conditions. We do have here encephalo, which means brain. Okay, encephalo means brain, but be very careful. In a previous, I'm going to go back. A previous slide, we have cephalo, which means head. So be very careful with those. Cephalo means head, but encephalo means brain. Okay. All right. We also have here glyco, and glyco here means sugar. Okay, glyco means sugar. For example, sorry guys, a little accent there. For example, hyperglycemia. Whoops, let's erase that there. Hyperglycemia. Oops. Hyperglycemia. What does this mean? Hyperglycemia means excessive blood sugar. But however, if you're in my class, this is the definition that I want you to know. Okay? It is an abnormal condition. That's what emia is. Emia means an abnormal blood condition of having excessive blood sugar levels. The word excessive is key word there, because guess what? After you eat a meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, inner lunch, inner breakfast, or whatever, brunch, if you're eating those meals, okay, after you've consumed that, your blood sugar is going to go up. Okay, you're going to have high blood sugar level. Most students are probably going to write down high blood sugar level, and they're probably going to get away with it in some other classes. But in my class, you're not going to do that. It is abnormal blood condition of having excessive blood sugar levels. Okay, because the word excessive means it is above what is that of normal. So we don't want to confuse that with having high blood sugar, because right now I just had my shake and I just had a meal. My blood sugar is pretty high now, but it doesn't mean it's excessive. Okay, so be very careful about that. It means excessive blood sugar level. Okay. Hepato here means liver. For example, you probably heard of the condition hepatitis, okay, which means inflammation of the liver. Another one here, leuco, which means white. For example, leukocyte. Let's take a look at that. Leukocyte means, that's right, white blood cell. Okay. Nephro here means kidney, and neuro means nerve. Excuse me. Not to be confused with each other, because nephro and neuro, they both start with an N and an E, but the brain for a lot of students kind of flip those two. So we don't want to make sure you don't flip those two. A lot of students confuse them. So here's another one. Onco. Onco means tumor. We have ophthalmo here, which means eye. For example, an ophthalmologist. An ophthalmologist is a medical physician. Oops. An ophthalmologist is a medical physician who specializes in the eye and eye surgery, who is different from an ophthalmologist or optometrist, I'm sorry, an optometrist who specializes in the measurement of the eye for vision and vision correction. Okay, so be very careful with those two. Osteo here means bone. Actually, all these terms will reappear over and over and over again. You should know them. But a pedo here means child, like a pediatrician. Okay, pediatrician is a physician who specializes in the care of children. Excuse me there. We have here psycho. Okay, psycho. I'm going psycho now because I can't find my pen. Psycho here means mind, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Okay. We have radio. No, not the radio like 103.5 or 102.7 FM. Not that kind of radio. I'm talking about X-rays, okay? We'll talk more about X-rays when we get to chapter 20, which pertains to nuclear medicine, but that's a while on down unless your instructor decides to talk about it early. Okay. By the way, I recommend, if you can, go and check out my chapter 20 lecture on nuclear medicine early on in the course. Even though it might not be officially assigned later, I recommend that you check out that lecture right away, because a lot of the clinical procedures and diagnostic techniques you're going to learn from chapters 5 on down will actually derive from those chapters. So I recommend that you check that lecture out and actually learn it early so that the rest of the class might make more sense for you. Okay, rhino means nose. Reno means kidney, right? Like Reno. You're probably thinking about some other building or venue, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Reno, which is the kidney. Those of you guys who are here in Southern California would know what I'm talking about when I say Reno. Right, okay. Rhino, not the animal like a rhinoceros, but it's kind of similar to that because a rhinoceros has a very pointed nose. Rhino here means nose. Sarco means flesh in this case, okay? And we do have here uro, which means urinary tract. So again, some of the different combining forms that are out there that you would want to learn. Now, here are some annoying suffixes in my opinion, but you got to know them nonetheless. Here's one. Ac means pertaining to, and al also means pertaining to. And please add this to your list of word parts that means pertaining to, because you're going to have a long list. There's so many of them out there, and you're probably looking at me going, why can't people just decide on one suffix that means pertaining to? I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. Because people are complicated like that. They want to have 500 million different suffixes and things to attach to their words so it sounds pretty and nice. I don't know, okay? But unfortunately, because it's the way it is, you got to learn it that way. So I recommend that you put a list on your wall or on paper or whatever, and write down all the different suffixes that means pertaining to. You're going to find out there's a lot of them out there, okay? All right. We have algia, which means pain. And I'm going to give you, how about neuralgia. Okay, neuralgia here means nerve pain. Ectomy, that's a big one here. Ectomy means excision or removal. Now check this out. There are two definitions. In this case, they are both similar, but there are other word parts out there where they have two definitions, but they both mean something different. For example, lysis, which we'll get to, I don't know if we've gotten to it, but we'll get to it later. Lysis has multiple, like 3 different parts. Which one is it? Okay, so it's, again, depending on the context of which it is used. Okay, we do have here emia, which we talked about earlier, which means blood condition. Gram, which means you need to study all this. It's going to come back again. I'll talk about it later, but I don't have that time. Gram here means record. Okay. Oh, here's more. Ick. Ick means pertaining to, and if it doesn't make you feel any better, ical. Okay, we're going to put ick and al together to make ical, that which also means pertaining to. Isn't that fun? More pertaining tos for you guys. Okay, I'm pretty excited here, as you could probably tell. I'm really excited with our first lecture here, and I'll keep going. Here we go. Ist means a specialist. Itis, which we already know means inflammation. We have oma, not oma, but oma. Okay, oma in another language means something else. I'm talking about oma. Okay, that means tumor, a mass, or swelling. Again, you see 3 different definitions here. Which one is it? All dependent on the context which it's used. And then we have opsy, which is the process of viewing. Amazingly, this letter Y here, just letter Y, means process of. So just kind of give you a hint there. Okay, well, what's going on? Process. Okay, looking at my notes, make sure that I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Scope versus scopy. Big confusion among students here, because scope, like a microscope or a telescope, okay, is an instrument to visually examine. Okay, so a microscope is an instrument to visually examine microscopic entities. A telescope is an instrument used to measure objects at a far distance. Okay, tele means distant. Okay, like telephone, distant sounds. But obviously you and I are going to, what is a telephone? Oh, it's a distant sound. No, a telephone is that machine, okay, that you communicate with, but, anyway, moving on. Versus scopy. Oh, by the way, scope, again, it's not that mouthwash. Okay, again, it's an instrument to visually examine. So if you're given, what does scope mean? Oh, it's that mouthwash. Please don't put mouthwash. You're going to get it wrong, okay, because we're not talking about that. So scopy here is a process of visually examining. And again, you have that letter Y there at the end as a clue for you. So scope versus scopy. Be very careful. I think there's 1 or 2 more of these out there that are different. We'll get to them when we cross that bridge. Cis, not cis here, means state of or condition, not sister. Oh, hey sis, no, not that. Cis means state of or condition. For example, prognosis. Prognosis is the prediction about the outcome of treatment, which is different from diagnosis. So we'll get to diagnosis a little bit later in the class. And again, here's that E here, which means process or condition. I want to draw your attention to this one, tomy, not Tommy. Tomy. Okay, there's tomy, which means process of cutting into or an incision. Actually, tomy means just process of cutting, or in this case, an incision to cut into. But there's another one called stomy with an S. We'll get to that later. Don't confuse those two. All right, more terms to get to you to keep you busy. Sorry, guys. We have a and an here, which means no, not, or without. We also have dia, which means complete or through. And you might want to think about diarrhea. Okay, that's a medical term out there. We'll define it when we get to the digestive system, but think about this one. Rhea means discharge, okay? And dia means through. Complete or through. So what's completely going through in terms of a discharge? Come on. But again, you're not going to put that definition down. Oh, it's not complete discharge of through. You're not going to write that down. That's not what the definition is. When we get to chapter 5, I'll tell you that definition, all right? Okay, endo, no. Endo here means within, and epi means above or upon, as you already know. Here's X. X means out, outside of, or outward. Think about, when you were once in a relationship and you say goodbye, I don't want to be with you anymore, they become your ex, right? Okay, outside of your circle. Yeah, something to keep in mind. We have here hyper, which means excessive, above, or more than normal. Okay, like when kids are really hyper, too much sugar in their system, they are excessively energetic. That's being hyper. But you don't say when a kid has not enough energy, you don't call them, oh, they're hypo. No, you don't say that they're hypo. In this case, hypo means deficient, below, under, or less than normal, depending on its context. But in this case, for children that don't have enough energy, I call them you're kind of sluggish or kind of low in energy or something, or tired, but you don't say, oh, they're hypo. Don't say that. Okay, people are going to look at you funny. Peri, which you already know, means surrounding or around. For example, pericardium, we've already defined this one. Pericardium here means a membrane surrounding the heart. So make sure that you know it's a membrane, not structure. We also have here re. That's right. Re means back, backwards, or again, like repeat, remission, or all those kind of words. Or how about resection in this case? How about resection? Now I'm going to write these terms on here as best as I can on the slide. Like resection, which means a process of cutting back or removal. Okay. Oh, here's a cool word. I don't know. I just like this. Like retro, which means behind. Sub, which means below or under. In terms of positioning, okay. In terms of positioning, like subhepatic, which means pertaining to below the liver, okay. Or like submarine or something like that. That kind of sub position. Okay, but you don't say, oh, someone is hyperglycemic, which means having an abnormal blood condition of excessive blood sugar levels. You don't say, if not you don't use subglycemic for hypoglycemic, because sub is positional, right? And then you have trans. Everyone should know what this means. Trans means across or through. For example, transcontinental transport. Or transhepatic in your textbook. Okay, so here's some rules that you might want to look at whenever you're looking in your glossary or your textbook. You might see these little symbols above these words. These help you to learn how to pronounce these words in case no one can pronounce it for you. So you can read these yourself. If you see a little line right here, if you see a little line that is above a vowel, that sound is very long. So for example, the first word here is ape. So repeat after me. If you see that line above the A, it's ape. 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 Got it? And same thing with open. 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 Okay? Open. All right, you got that. Now when you have this little hat, not a hat, kind of like a little U at the top of vowel, that sound is very short. For example, apple. You don't say apple. Okay? You don't say apple. You say apple. Okay? Also pot. The pot is very quick and pot. I'm talking about like a vase pot. I'm not talking about some other kind of pot out there, okay? Pot like a vase pot for plants. Pot. All right? Pot. Quick, short, and simple. Pot. All right. Or thank you. You say thank you. Thank you. Right? Not thank you. Or thank you. Okay? Thank you. So that's kind of how the word you is you. Thank you. All right? And the capitalized syllable is accented in a word whenever you see that. All right. For example, adenitis. Adenitis. Okay? Adenitis. Biology. Cephalic. Iatrogenic. Resection. So those are some medical terms that I've pronounced for you, and hopefully you'll repeat after me. You can rewind that back and forth. Okay? Adenitis, biology, cephalic, iatrogenic, resection. All right, so hopefully that'll get you a good head start on learning all the medical terms that we're going to get through in this course. Now that kind of is the end of our Chapter 1 lecture. I hope that you have found this very informative and hopefully fun. I don't know. I try to make it fun because I know how lectures can be very boring and put you to sleep. I try to stay energetic for you, and hopefully the rest of the lecture series will be energetic as well. Okay, once again, this is a video lecture series, so if you need me to go back and repeat any of my jokes, just go ahead and slide that little indicator on the player button back, and I will repeat this as many times as you want me to. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to get mad at you, seriously, because guess what? The real me is enjoying a mocha latte somewhere else, enjoying well-deserved treats for having worked hard on this video lecture, okay, and the many others that you're going to see. So play it back if you need it over and over again. I recommend that you periodically come back to these lectures and replay them as you continue on through the course. Practice, practice, and practice. Get those flashcards down. Okay, make sure that you not just know the term and then write out the definition, but you also, given the definition, give me the term backwards. You want to be able to do that as well. And don't forget, okay, this is a learning experience for everyone, and I hope to deliver that to you. In any event that you are feeling down or kind of stressed or whatever, don't forget that dot that we've talked about, or whatever you use to relax. I provided some videos for you of different nice Zen sounds. It helps me relax. Hopefully it'll help you relax too as you proceed and learn through this course, okay? And I want to wish you, so anyway, make sure you keep that in mind. Once again, use flashcards, but also make sure that you utilize your textbook, answer those questions at the end of the textbook. The answers are provided there if you're using that book. And also make sure that you are defining a lot of the terms that are in there. And I recommend making flashcards of, you're going to make flashcards of those terms as well, not just roots, prefixes, suffixes, and what do those mean. You want to know the terminology. That's the key one, okay? So for example, cardio means heart, so cardio means heart, but you also want to know what a cardiologist is. You want to define that. Cardiologist is a medical physician who specializes in the cardiovascular system and the heart. So you want to be able to define those as well, because knowing those word parts is only half of the learning. The rest of the learning and the true medical terminologists will be able to define full medical terms, not, what does retro mean? Or what does metro? Or what does iatro? Or what does ick mean? Okay, so there's much more, ical, there's much more to it. Definitely recommend the actual medical words and then give those definitions. So hopefully that you found that informative. Again, if you have any questions, you know how to write questions for me. Okay, if you're in my online class, you know how to do that. Contact your instructor if you're not in mine for any question you might have, and even contact your classmates to communicate with them, even though it might be online, or if you're not online, whatever. Talk to your classmates, because they're all there for the same reason, which is to learn medical terminology, and that's kind of what gets me excited about teaching this lecture. All right, so hopefully you found this informative. I very much look forward to seeing you in the next lecture series, and don't forget, you are all inspiring people. I look forward to the next one with you. See ya then, guys.